All right, thanks everyone for joining me here today for our session, Smells Like Team Productivity, Finding Your Workflow Nirvana. Before we start, I just want to thank the locals. I've really been enjoying your city. I walked around yesterday. It's really nice here. And you know, it says something about a city when you go into the hotel and in the bathroom on the wall is mounted a beer bottle opener. So I thought that was a good sign. Now, before we jump in, I want to ask a few questions, learn a little bit about you, so I could try to tailor this and make sure I keep on track and address what may be some of our common issues. So first question, anyone here support a team or work on a team with at least one remote worker? Okay, we have some. We're going to get into some tips and tricks to support those teams. Next question, have you ever struggled to get your team to use a new technology or service? You invest, you put the time, you put everything in, and they're just not using it. Okay, we have some adoption issues here. Always have adoption issues. And we're going to discuss the way we used to address adoption and the way I hope we start addressing it in the future. And last question, have you ever deployed a solution but wished it better met your team's needs? They're using it, but they're not really getting everything out of it. Okay, thanks. Yeah, and that comes into customization of your environment to support your team's workflow. We're going to be talking about that a lot today as well. So a little bit about my background. My name is David Maldo. I'm the founder and CEO of Let's Do Video. We're a news site, an analyst site covering business communications, team productivity, with of course a focus on video technology, and we provide vendor-neutral coverage of all the latest trends in the visual collaboration industry. Before I did that, I was a managing partner at Telepresence Options, which is another recognized firm in the space, and we had an annual print magazine. And I got my start in visual collaboration at Wainhouse Research Analyst Firm, where among many other responsibilities, they kept me busy there, I managed the video test lab, and that was the most fun for me. We had all the greatest tools and toys of the time, and it was my job to make them all work together. I made thousands of test calls, learned how it all worked from the technical perspective, and that's when I really got my appreciation for, wow, we got to make this stuff a little bit easier if we expect people to use it. And it's not on the slide here, but before I came into this career, I was an attorney for 10 years. So I was an end user. And don't hold that against me. And I tried to bring that end user perspective into everything that I do. So all in all, I've been covering the industry for 10 years. And during that time, my perspective has changed. And I want to spend a few minutes on that because it's going to bear on everything that I talk about. And I think my changed perspective also reflects what I think the user's changed perspective is. And that change is 5-10 years ago, I was all about the technology. These products are amazing. And if you can get your teams to use them, you're going to get incredible ROI. So I wanted to know how they worked. I was interested in the bits and the bytes and the speeds and the feeds and the protocols to make this stuff work because it wasn't always easy to get it to work. Now, I don't care so much. The stuff works, and it's not like it just recently started working. It's been working. Everything works really great. So if a team can get a call started and it's connected and everyone can see each other and hear each other, I'm not as impressed anymore. I want to dig deeper. Now I'm interested in workflow and productivity and the things that we're actually trying to support with these technologies. Now, so from the end user's perspective, it's kind of like it's 2017. We have flying robots and electric cars. Technology is magic, it's easy, and we can do anything. Now I know that perspective is a little bit unfair. It is hard to make it work before they cut off my sound for saying everyone's job is easy, but it's a perspective thing. And I have a little story to explain what I mean by that. Back in the 1960s, there were no automatic doors. When you went to the grocery store, you had to push the door open and pull your cart through. And the first time a lot of people saw an automatic door was on Star Trek, the original William Shatner Star Trek. And one day a hospital administrator was watching that show, and he saw, Captain Kirk boldly walking forward, and the door just whoosh, opens, and he walks through it, and whoosh, it just closes. And the administrator said, I need this in my hospital. We have patients with limited mobility. We have staff pushing equipment. If the doors just open, this would really change things. So he wrote a letter to Star Trek. He said, hey, explain the situation. I'm a hospital administrator. How do your automatic doors work? What's the technology behind it? And Star Trek wrote back and said, oh, we're happy to help. The way the automatic doors work is we have a prop guy who stands off camera. And when the actor walks towards the door, the prop guy goes, whoosh, and then when he walks through, he goes, whoosh, again. So the point is, It's not magic. I know it's hard work to get all this stuff to work, but from your user's perspective, they don't know that we, the IT AV community, are that prop guy behind the door. So they're expecting a little bit more from us. So today, what are we going to talk about? We're going to have to see where we're coming from to see where we're going, so we're going to spend a little time on the way we've been doing things, the traditional deployment approach, and the ROI challenges that we've been struggling with for so long from that approach. Then I'm going to get into what I think is the new way we're doing things now, the workflow-based approach, and the considerations that brings to bear. Finally, we'll do some case studies, and since it's early in the morning, I'm trying to keep this light. Not going to be a lot of stats and figures. It's a lot of high-level stuff, and the case studies I tried to make fun. And we'll end with a few key takeaways. So the traditional approach, as you can see, it brought us some headaches. And the first thing on the slide here, single vendor. This isn't the problem with traditional approach. This is one example of the problem, the lack of flexibility. When end users would come to me as a consultant and say, sometimes a Fortune 500 company would say, hey, we love the in-room equipment from this one vendor, but we love the infrastructure from this other vendor, and we like the streaming solution from this third vendor. Can I put that all together? And I'd say, well, maybe we could make it work, but I really wouldn't recommend it. It's going to bring you a lot of headaches. It might not work, and you're going to have to explain it to your bosses. I understand that that's the ideal environment for your teams, but you want things to work. Because back then, it didn't always work. I remember when I was at the Wayne House Test Lab, I would make a simple call between two endpoints from two vendors, standards-based, nothing fancy, and sometimes the screen share wouldn't work or the audio would be off. So I'd call up vendor A, because it was my job to figure out why not. And vendor A would say, we're using standards as the other guys. I'd call vendor B, why isn't this call working? Oh, no, our code is clean, those first guys are crazy. Now that's bad enough for me. I had to explain to my boss why it doesn't work, but imagine if what happened to one of my clients, who was a Fortune 500 company, having to explain to the CEO why the call isn't working. I couldn't let that happen, so I would say, I know it's not ideal, pick your vendor and just get everything from one person. And of course, we would struggle with ROI, because what we got wasn't tailored to our team's needs. Now this always makes me laugh, because we should never struggle with ROI. When you talk to any vendor, you read the data on any collaboration solution out there, proven ROI. We have studies, we have data, we have results, we have white papers. I know, I've written some of these white papers, and they're real. It's not just marketing hype. The ROI is there, but only if you use the solutions the way the vendors expect you to, and that's the problem. So what did we do to get the users to use things the way we expected them to? We had adoption programs. In my time in this industry, nothing has upset me and frustrated me more than the fact that we have adoption programs. You spend $2 million on a visual collaboration environment, and you know it's amazing, and you know if your people use it, they'll love it, and they'll get great productivity out of it, and they just don't use it. So we have to spend tens of thousands of dollars on internal marketing programs to sell it to our own teams. We have to have the boss come down and give a mandate, you will use this. That always seemed crazy to me. This stuff should be self-adopting. But adoption was hard. And I think one of the reasons it was hard is because it required changes to people's workflow. The most obvious example is video conferencing. How did people work before video conferencing? They sat at their desks, and if they needed to call someone, they picked up their phone and they called them. What did we tell them to do? We said, well, if you do it over video, you're going to have more impact, you're going to be more effective, your meetings will end quicker, your sales will close better. You should do video. So what you should do is, instead of picking up the phone, you should call your IT person and ask them to schedule a call. Gather your materials, walk down the hall to the video meeting room, because video conferencing was a meeting room solution, set up there, call the person you want to talk to, tell them to walk down to their meeting room, and then have your meeting. No one wanted to do that. It was too much of a change to the workflow. Another angle of looking at the same problem is that what we were buying wasn't meeting our needs. What the industry sold us was meeting room video conferencing. One meeting room talks to another meeting room. Well, I'm not saying we never do that. That happens. Sometimes team A needs to talk to team B. But that's not what we were asking for. The real need was the team member who couldn't make it. Your sales team is in meeting room A, and your best salesperson is across the country in a Starbucks somewhere. And she's calling in on the phone, and she can't see whatever's being shared. No one can hear her. She can't hear anyone, and she's not as effective as she should be. What we wanted is a way to bring in that team member who should be there in the room but can't for whatever reason in an effective way on video. And that's not what we bought, and that's not what we sold our users. So we weren't meeting their needs. It really all comes down to limited customization. The products were hardware products. The software was baked in. You bought it, you unboxed it, and it did whatever it did. Today things are a lot more flexible. Also, we had a disconnect sometimes between different systems, in-room systems and virtual systems. One great example, and this really happened 3 to 5 years ago, I was consulting for a big financial firm in Boston. And the CTO said to me, David, I need you to get me some help. We need more ROI out of our video conferencing. I said, great, that's what I do. Let's start with the basics. What do you got? We have these 2 really fancy meeting room systems, one in our big meeting room in San Francisco and one in our big meeting room in Boston. I said, okay, that's a start. What are your users saying? They love it. It's amazing. So much. We used to travel for these meetings. Now we do them over video, and everyone could see each other. The angle is great. The audio is great. Best money we ever spent. I'm like, I'm not seeing where the problem is. So how often are you using it? Twice a year. I'm not kidding. Twice a year. And I said, what do you mean twice a year? What are you using it for? Well, twice a year we have the big executive meeting. We put all the executives in San Francisco in that room, all the executives in Boston in that room, and they meet. And we used to have to fly them for it, and this is wonderful. I said, okay, well, what about the rest of the year? What's happening in these meeting rooms? Are they empty? No, they're booked solid. People are fighting over time slots. Okay, and in those meetings, is there ever someone calling in on the phone who really should be calling in on video? He said, you know, David, it's funny you mention that because my users have been asking me for that. And we use Skype, so what I did is I put a laptop at the end of the table, and they're calling in on Skype on the laptop. I said, how are they liking it? They hate it. It's the camera's not capturing everyone, the audio's not good, it's a little bit better than the phone, but they're not satisfied. Do you ever think of having that person call in on the wonderful system that you love so much? Oh, Dave, but that's interop, and that's customization, and that's hard. Well, first of all, it wasn't that hard. And we got it going for him, and he got his ROI. But second of all, even if it was hard, I think it would have been worth it because his teams were so much happier and they're getting so much more done. And that's what it really comes down to, is keeping your teams happy. And that's something we've always talked about, but I'm going to take a minute on it because there's been a shift. I used to talk about keeping your teams happy to keep them productive. Pay your people a lot of money, give them flexibility, let them work from home, give them all the tools they want, make them happy, they'll work harder, they'll get more done, and you'll make more money. Now that's still true, but that's a really small part of the picture now. Now it's not just about keeping your teams happy, it's about keeping your teams. There's been this cultural shift, and a lot of people blame millennials for this. I think we blame millennials for enough. I don't understand all the attacks on millennials, like, you know, watch out for millennials, they get into the walls and eat the insulation. I mean, they're just younger people, it's okay. But this isn't really a millennial thing. People used to work for companies for 40, 50 years, their whole life. The company was their family. Now people work for companies for 2 or 3 years, and they leave and they take all that experience. And recruiting, training, hiring, it's very expensive, and the disruption to your team is very expensive. You want to keep your teams together. I really strongly believe that there are things that a 5-year team and a 10-year team can do that a 3-year team could never do. So how do you keep your teams together? Money is not the sole motivator anymore. People will leave jobs for a job that's more satisfying that pays less. That's just what they do now. So you have to keep your team satisfied. They want to be part of a killer team that's knocking out great projects and doing things that they're proud of. You give them the tools to allow them to do that, they're going to be so happy that they're not going to leave. Now, one more thing on keeping teams happy. This is a little side story, but it's a lesson I learned at my first Mardi Gras. I lived in New Orleans for 10 years, and this kind of, you'll see how it applies. But I went to my first parade, and I was really excited. My friends were, oh, David's going to his first Mardi Gras parade, you're going to have so much fun. And I got there on the parade route, and there's kids, and there's families, and there's food, and there's drinks, and there's music, and I'm having a great time. And the parade starts, and the floats come by, and all of a sudden I see flying through the air Mardi Gras beads. I'm like, oh, great. So I put them on, and my apologies to the sound guy, the next few minutes might be a little rough. Hey, I got some Mardi Gras beads. And then a few minutes later, flying through the air, oh, there's another one. So I put it on. And as the day went on, you don't realize it, but you're putting on more and more, every few minutes, another Mardi Gras bead. Until by the end of the day, you could barely move your neck. They're loaded up to here. And I'm having so much fun. And my friend said to me after 2 parades, after 8 hours, David, come on, we're going down to the French Quarter, we're hitting the jazz clubs, we're dancing all night. And I said, I am not. I'm done, you wore me out, you win, I lose, I'm going back to my place and I'm going to sleep. And my friend said, oh, that's right, it's your first Mardi Gras, let me show you a trick. David, take off the beads. Take off my Mardi Gras beads, I've been catching these all day. Trust me, David, take off the beads. Just for a second. Okay. Oh, whoa. It felt like I took 20 pounds of weight off my shoulders. I didn't realize. Because individually, they're hollow plastic. They don't weigh anything. You put one more on, you put one more on, you put one more on, you don't notice. By the end of the day, you're carrying all this weight. And when you take it off, I was like, yeah, I'm going to the French Quarter. Yeah, we're hitting the jazz clubs. I had this burst of energy. Now, if you put all these beads on your team at the beginning of the workday, they would not be as productive for you. I think your virtual teams have the equivalent of these invisible Mardi Gras beads that they're walking around with all day and not noticing the burdens. And it's our jobs to find them for them. Now, here's some examples. Let's say a meeting room is set up, and we thought everyone was going to sit on one side and look at the monitor on the other side. But for some reason, they're all sitting right under the monitor, and they're having their meetings like this, looking up at the screen. They might not ever complain about it. That's just the way the world is. That's the way the room is set up. But it's slowing them down. It's burdening for them. Sit in their meetings, see that this is going on. We can fix it for them. Or maybe they have a nice dual screen setup, and no one knows how to use it, so they're not using it to share screen, and they're passing around a laptop or emailing screenshots to each other. Again, they're not going to complain. There's always something that no one knows how to use. Sit in their meetings, see what's going on, get them using the right equipment, they'll have better meetings. Or a very common example, the Wednesday meeting at 3 p.m. always starts at 3:12 because Bob from accounting just does not know how to connect. No one's going to complain about that. You know, that's just Bob. We love Bob. Can't help it. But if we can figure that out for him, maybe make it auto-dial for him, maybe make it click to join. Somehow, we save that team that 12 minutes, that frustration, to get more work done. So we want to take that easing their burdens, making our team happy philosophy into account when we are designing our environments. So how do we design our environments? The new approach. We don't start with tools and say, hey, everyone use this. We start with the workflow. And when I say start with the workflow, I mean diving deep down, not just saying, oh, are you doing video in your meetings? Okay, then we're going to buy you video conferencing. Oh, are you going to do whiteboarding? Okay, we're going to do whiteboarding. Understand the productivity philosophies behind their workflow. Everyone's Agile these days, and everyone does Agile different. Learn about Agile. You don't have to go to Agile school. You can just read a few articles on the web, but find out how your team is doing Agile, and then find out ways to support it. If they're doing, whether it's the Pomodoro technique, or whether it's getting things done, or whether it's Eat the Frog, or Rubber Duck programming, all these productivity philosophies inform the workflows. And even though I think we should all become experts in all these productivity things, I don't think we should tell our teams how to do it. Let them drive the process. Is there anyone here who's ever heard of a desire path? Okay, cool. I'm glad that there's no one, because one of my favorite things is sharing cool stuff, and this is a cool thing you'll see on the next slide. But desire paths, you'll see exactly how it ties in to letting your team make their own workflow. And finally, when we survey, and we've always done surveys and gotten feedback, I want us to ask different questions. I don't want to say, was the audio okay on the video call? Or is the lighting okay? Is the light bright enough in the projector? I want to say, how are your meetings going? Are you scrumming the way you want to scrum? Are you getting things done the way you want to get things done? So, these are desire paths. And you can see exactly what I'm talking about. If you look at this one on the left, obviously whoever designed that corner intended for people to walk along the sidewalk and look at the nice pretty grass in the middle. And the people said, we don't want to do it that way, we want to walk across the grass. And you can see that path was not designed by any engineer. It's this nice organic curve, there's no straight lines, there's no right angles, and the width of it shows how much foot traffic there is. This is a perfect visualization of people's workflow getting around this corner. And similar on this one, obviously people are cutting across the grass on their bikes to park at the bike rack. Whoever designed this area wants people to drive around. They don't want people walking across the grass, but that's what people are doing. Now, the first instinct when you see a desire path might be to say, users are doing it wrong. I'm not going to let them do it wrong. We're going to put a sign up that says don't walk on the grass. We're going to put a fence up. We're going to put hedges in the way. But you know what? People can ignore signs, and people can jump over fences or go around hedges. It's hard to make people work the way you want them to work. So what I suggest, instead of telling them to do it your way, we help them do it their way. We take their desire paths and we smooth it down for them. Now, you see a lot of campuses like this, and you can see the paths between the buildings. I think this is SIU. These are very organic. No engineer designed these. There's no straight lines. There's no right angles. What happened is, and what a lot of colleges do, they just plant the grass. They don't put any paths down. They wait a few semesters, and they see where the faculty and students walk, and they see those desire paths form, and then they pave them down. So what they're saying is this the way you want to work? Fine. Not only do we allow it, we're going to make it easy for you. We're going to smooth it, pave it down. We're going to make it wonderful for you. If there's any one image that sticks in your mind from this presentation, I'd love it to be this, because this is what we should be doing for our working teams. Their workflow, our expertise to make it better for them. So other factors to think about when building our environments. One is I like to start with the virtual. And what I mean by that is when I used to work as an attorney, I went to an office every day. And I thought of the office as work. That's where my people were. That's where my tools were. That's where my files were. That's where work got done. I could do some stuff virtually. We had some stuff in the cloud, but it was accessory. It was extra. It was backup and storage. The real office was the physical office. Today, I think it's flipped. Today, I think the real office is our virtual office. Even if we're in the same building, I'm going to reach out to you when I am. So my people are in the cloud. My tools are in the cloud. My files are in the cloud. The cloud is where the work gets done. Now, I'm not saying we should shut down all the physical offices. There's nothing like sitting across the table to really, with your teammates, to really get work done. But the idea is that the virtual should be standalone. If no one can go to the office one day, they close it down because there's a leak or whatever, all the meetings still occur. Instead of in the physical meeting room, they occur in the virtual meeting room. All the work still gets done. Everyone can still reach everyone. So the virtual comes first. And that comes in design too. The workflow, the virtual comes first. You don't say to your sales team, oh, we're going to give you a big touch screen so that your sales team leader can bring up Salesforce and show everyone stuff. You ask your sales team, how do you have your meetings? And if they say, well, our leader, she likes to stand up and open up her Salesforce and show us everything, well, okay, then a touch screen is right. If everyone opens up their own Salesforce and shares information that way, maybe you need some wireless screen share solution or something different. But the idea is start with their workflow, then start building. And at the end of the day, what you want is this seamless experience. And what I mean by that is it doesn't matter if your team is in their office, in the meeting room, at home, in a hotel across the country, in a Starbucks. They're using the same tools, the same workflow, and getting things done in the same way. Another thing to think about, and I love this one, is now I no longer recommend single vendor. I don't know if standards have gotten more standard or we've just gotten better with them, but interop works now. You can make a mixed environment with something from vendor A and something from vendor B and something from vendor C, and it'll work. So do that, tailor it perfectly. Don't take the safe route and just get everything from one vendor. Also, don't be afraid to embrace new solutions. I used to recommend against this. I say let your competitors be the beta testers, let them take that pain, and when they figure it out, then you start using it. You know, some verticals, education and healthcare, they're early adopters and they have reasons to be. But for basic enterprise, I'd say let's let that sit in the market for another year or so, make sure it's good, and then we'll use it. Now I say don't be afraid of the new stuff. Technology is so good, everything works, the new stuff works. A good example, Skype Room Systems. They've been around for a couple of years now, but it's a new entry to the market. And Skype Room Systems are video conferencing systems that look like traditional high-quality video conferencing systems, but they're actually running Skype. They're not connecting to Skype, interoperating with Skype, they run Skype. So my friend in Boston, whose team was using Skype and wanted to call into meeting rooms, this would have been perfect for them. And years ago I would have said, this has only been on the market a few years, there's only 3 vendors doing it, maybe wait a while. No, if your team is using Skype, give it a shot. Cool technologies like touch screens, proximity intelligence. I love the proximity. You walk into a room and your phone's in your pocket, the thing lights up and it knows it's you. Voice control. Now, don't just get these things because they're cool and make your teams use them. But if they do match your team's workflow, don't be afraid. And it's another thing that I love. We now have self-adopting solutions. You know how upset I was about having to force our users to use this stuff, having these adoption programs. Now we're seeing solutions that are so easy to use and easy to share and easy to create accounts and easy to log into and even fun to use that they're just getting viral growth in industries. I talk to some firms and I'm consulting for them and I say, well, what's your communication solution? And they say, our official solution is we've got 10,000 accounts from this vendor, but really everyone's using this free app and we can't stop them. Does anyone out here have that kind of situation? You have an underground? Okay, good, none of you had to face that, but a lot of people do say that we have these viral solutions, these persistent chat messaging things, and they struggle with it. They want their teams to use the right thing. I say this is a perfect desired path situation. This is what your teams want to use. Find a way to make it work for them. Maybe that free app has a business plan that has the security and the enterprise features you need. Or maybe there's a competitor that does it but has a similar workflow. And this is where you pave it down for them. Your users may love this app, but they're not the technology experts. They're not going to configure it correctly for themselves. They don't know how to do that. We need to go into the settings menus. We need to go to the administrative menus, and that's how we pave down their desired paths. Another thing I think about these days is I look at feature lists differently. I used to just look at the spec sheets, and there was something the vendors did. We called it specmanship. Each one tries to get better numbers than the other. And that's how I'd recommend solutions. Oh, this one has higher resolution than this one must be better. Now, everything works so good and everything looks so good and the experience is so good, I don't really care about one spec being better than the other. I still look at feature lists, but I'm looking at them a different way. I'm looking to see if they have the features that match the team's workflow. Another great advantage we have is the availability of free trials and demos. We've all done these pilot programs. We spend tens of thousands of dollars to try a new solution with a part of our team to see if they'll like it. Very expensive. Now, and if you go to my website, letsdovideo.com, under the resources tab, I've created a list of all these free trials and demos for video conferencing, streaming, project management, and persistent team chat. And there's dozens of them, some freemium, some 30-day free trials. Try them out with your teams, find the ones that they like, it doesn't cost you anything, now you're matching their workflow. And the final thing is take the time to learn about APIs. APIs are scary to a lot of people. If you don't know what it is, it's like, oh yeah, APIs are important. I hear a lot of people trying to fake it. It's not that complicated. The way we interact with programs is from the GUI, the user interface. That's where, for Facebook, I see the Facebook's homepage, and I put in my information to the keyboard. That's how I interface with Facebook. But when programs interface with Facebook, they use APIs. So when you go to some other service like Netflix, and you log in through Facebook, how is Netflix talking to Facebook? That's all an API is. It's not that complicated. And a lot of collaboration solutions have APIs now. You could be in your chat solution and pull in information from Salesforce. Obviously, that kind of integration can really be efficient. And it's worth the time to learn how to do it. And if the APIs don't exist in the solutions that you're looking at, you can create your own sometimes. There are third-party services like Zapier and If This Then That that could use to kind of fill the gaps. One example is Salesforce by default. If you create something new for a team member in Salesforce, they'll get an email notification. Well, let's say your sales team are bad about email. They have thousands of emails in their inbox, and they're not very responsive. But if you send them a text message, they respond right away. So you could make, it's called a Zap. It's like a recipe in Zapier, where if something happens in Salesforce, your team members get a text message instead of an email. Seems like a little thing, but it's worth the time to do. So let's get into our first case study. The first team we're going to look at is my team, my favorite team, Let's Do Video. And we are a remote team. And I want to give a few quick stories to explain how remote we are. We're about to celebrate our 3rd anniversary. And recently I met, it's a small team of 3, I met one of my team members for the first time. And we meet every day. or almost every day on video, sometimes for hours. And we're a really close-knit team, and we work together, and we're friends. You know, we know each other. But my CTO, Anna, was traveling and had a layover in a nearby airport. So I went there to meet her for lunch. I didn't think anything of it. But when I got there, we both freaked out. It was weird. I was like, you're three-dimensional. You're not supposed to be three-dimensional. What's going on? And she's only seen me from here to here. She's like, you have legs? I don't want to see that. This is so weird. And it's like, how did we build a company? We've never been in the same room together before. One other quick story, my CMO, Chrissy, she likes to mess with me a little bit. We all have one of those. One day, about a year ago, out of the blue, we're meeting over video, and she goes, David, how tall am I? And I said, I have no idea. I see you every day. I built a company with you. I have no idea how tall you are. And she said, guess. And I said, no. It's like, you're afraid you're going to insult me? There's a wrong number? I said, I just don't want to take any risks now. But it really brought to mind, wow, we have a real remote team. And I don't think 5, 10 years ago, I could have built a company completely remote. And one more point on this. When I tell people that I have a remote team, they think, oh, okay, you have a couple Craigslist contractors. Once or twice a month, you send them something. This is a real team. These sneakers are the colors of my company's logo, and they have a little LDV on the side. They showed up at my door one day. Anna bought them for me because she thought they'd be cool for this presentation. Wasn't even my birthday, spent her own money on it. She's just that invested in the team that she's coming up with her own ideas to make things fun. That's a real team. So of course, we all work out of our home offices. I support flex time. If I message someone, they don't respond. When they get it, they get it. And we're very collaborative. Some teams break everything up into tasks. They all do their tasks. Our team, we really like to work together on stuff. So with that in mind, we had to build our virtual office. And what we did is we looked at a physical office and just gave ourselves virtual equivalents. Obviously, I can't have file storage. We don't have a file server. We don't have an office. So we use cloud storage. And whether we use Google Drive or OneDrive or Dropbox isn't the point. It's just that type of a solution. I can't walk into Chrissy's office and leave a note on her desk saying, hey, give me this file when you get back. So we needed a way for asynchronous communications. So we used those persistent team chat solutions. I can't take Anna and go into the meeting room and have a face-to-face with her, so we use video for that. But we can't have a cork board which has all of our to-dos stickied on it, so we use a virtual project management system. We're currently using Trello, but there's plenty of options out there. Now, as for our actual workflow, we try a lot of different things. I've been studying it, I've been reading it, I read an article on Pomodoro, and all of a sudden I'm making my team do Pomodoro productivity. Currently, we're doing a mix of Agile and getting things done, and I wish I had time to really describe what this process is, but I described it in a recent video podcast. If you go to my website, find video podcast number 30, it's called Getting Things Scrummed, and it's just a 6-minute YouTube video. But basically, we looked at Agile, and there's a lot of things we liked about Agile. What we particularly liked is the fact that on a day-to-day basis, it really keeps people accountable. You have these little scrums where you say, the last 24 hours I worked on this, and the next 24 hours I'm going to work on that. And then the next day, well, you said you were going to work on this, what happened? That part of it really worked for us. And I love Getting Things Done. Has anyone read Getting Things Done by David Allen? Right on. I recommend this book very highly. I've been using it for years for my personal productivity. But it's an individual system. It doesn't really work for teams, so we had to adjust that as well. So then we had our workflow, and we picked our tools. Now, some of it is based on the fact that we're a remote team. Obviously, it had to be cloud. We needed to do some sort of persistent chat. But a lot of it was based on the way our workflow was. We needed it to be simple. We're a small startup. We don't want to spend time learning tools. So all the tools we use are very intuitive. We needed it to be accessible. And what I mean by that is I work on my desktop most of the day. Chrissy's on her laptop. Anna has this big monster phone with a stylus that she likes to use. I want everything to be the same for all three of us. I want solutions that have the same UI across all platforms. So when I say, oh, go up left to the settings menu and move to the right, it means the same thing to all of us. We like it to be project-based. That helps us keep things on track. For example, in our persistent team messaging solution, we have our channels set up by project. So if I send a message to Anna, it's not just what is David talking about now. She sees I'm sending her a message in the web development thing. Oh, David's following up on that web project we're doing. And we wanted everything to be team-based. Some teams like to break everything down into tasks and just send everyone on their way. we like to work together. So we use solutions where everyone can see what everyone else is doing. And that's basically how we do it. So the next team, my second favorite team, is the Beatles. I'm one of those Beatles fans, and one day I decided to make this chart because I just thought there might be something interesting here. And this is how many songs they put out each year. So I was looking for patterns here, and I found that there were 3 workflows that the Beatles tried. Now the first thing you need to know about this chart is it doesn't reflect everything. This is just the songs that they wrote. In those early years, 63 and 64 in particular, they were still touring. They were doing hundreds of shows a year, traveling the world, and they put out 2 movies in that time. So that workflow I call working your team to death. You could do that. Pay your people a lot of money, keep them so busy they don't even have time to complain. And for a few years, they'll do a lot of work for you. You'll get a lot of stuff out of them. And then they'll get burnt out and hate you and leave. So I don't recommend that. The second phase, in the mid-years, and they still put out a lot of stuff during that time, this is the best phase. This is when they said, you know what, we're the Beatles. We don't want to tour anymore. We just want to sit in the studio. In fact, we want to do what we want to do when we want to do it, and no one's going to tell us anything because we're the Beatles. This is, I call, treating the team like rock stars. And during this time, they put out what a lot of people, a lot of Beatles fans think are their best albums. Really, really great work. And when I mean treating them like rock stars, they could go to any studio in the world at 3 in the morning, and the best sound guys would come in and help them because it's a chance to work with the Beatles. They could ask for anything, no one would say no to them. There's a story about Strawberry Fields Forever, one of my favorite songs. When they recorded it, they weren't sure how they wanted to do it. So they did like 30, 40 takes. Different instruments, different keys, different tempos, different ways of singing, all different things. It was almost like completely different songs. And after a few days of recording, John Lennon went to George Martin, the Beatles producer, and said, use the first half from take 13 and use the second half from take 28, or whatever the numbers were. And George said, I can't do that. They're in different keys. It won't work. And he said, you're George Martin, the producer for the Beatles. I'm John Lennon. Make it work for me. And he did. He slowed one down, he sped another one up, got them to the same tempo, and you can't even hear the difference. So you might be thinking, are you really saying, David, are you really saying we have to treat our team like divas? We have to treat them like rock stars? When it comes to setting up their productivity environments, yes, you want the best work out of them. Now the final Beatles workflow, and this is like a warning to us all. When they went to make the Let It Be album, Paul McCartney had this idea. Everyone wants to know how the Beatles record an album. So why don't we bring in some cameramen and record it and make a movie out of it? The cameramen will be there from 9 to 5, so we'll work from 9 to 5 every day recording this album. And John Lennon said to him, work 9 to 5 every day. Oh, you want to see what it's like to have a real job? Okay, we could try that. So they tried it, and they hated it. And you know what happens when people hate their jobs? They start fighting with their coworkers. And if you've ever seen the Let It Be movie, it's a horrible thing to watch. Yoko Ono didn't break up the Beatles. Having real jobs broke up the Beatles. They're fighting over who ate the last muffin. I mean, it's ridiculous. Don't do this to your teams. Don't give them real jobs. Now, the final case study is Nirvana. I picked this for a few reasons. I thought the title was cute, smells like teen productivity. I also wanted to give Generation X a little love as a Generation Xer. I feel like all I ever hear about is baby boomers and millennials, Generation Xers are here too. And thank you for indulging me with the guitar. It does make a point, but it just feels really cool to stand in front of people with a guitar, so I wanted to do that. So apologize and I thank you. By the way, if you ever wondered what the 5th pocket in your jeans is for, it's for guitar picks, just so you know. So the story behind Nirvana is the way Kurt Cobain liked to get things done. His desired workflow was intense teamwork. If you go on the web, you could find the letter that he wrote to his previous drummer firing him because he wouldn't rehearse enough. And one day, Kurt Cobain was sitting around playing with riffs, and he was playing with that old Boston riff, More Than a Feeling. It's a great riff. He was thinking, I'm going to change that a little bit and make it my own. So he took it down a little bit, changed the tempo a little bit, and he came up with... He's like, there's something there, but I don't have the song yet. So he brought in his drummer, and he brought in his bassist, and he said, we are going to play this for 10 hours straight, all day, until we figure it out. And so for 10 hours... And at the end, what they came up with was magic. And they didn't require a lot of support. Their amps had to work, their guitars had to stay in tune. That's not the point. The point is they did it the way they wanted to do it, and it changed the world of music. It's like all of a sudden we stopped using hairspray and started wearing flannels. It was amazing. So that's the last case study, and thanks for sticking with me so long. We're down to our takeaways. Our takeaways are, and the big one is, workflow first. I still love all the products, I still love all the technology, but I don't start there. Second takeaway is talk to your people. Now, we've always talked to our people, but it's a different conversation. It's not, how do you have a meeting? Are you going to use video conferencing? It's what productivity methodology are you into? How can we help your workflow? The next thing is, consider new technologies. Don't be afraid. It's not about letting your competitor be the beta tester. It's about getting a jump ahead on your competitor. A big one, customize and integrate. You can't just take this stuff off the shelves and expect our teams to use them. Work closely with your integrators. Get the people from AVI Systems to come in with you, talk to your teams, figure it out, and put a really just for your team solution together. And finally, the follow-up. Like I said before, it's a very, very different kind of follow-up. Not just, did everything work? Not just, were you able to dial into the meeting? But how are your meetings going? Are you being more productive? So, for more of this kind of stuff, coverage of industry trends, emerging technologies, please feel free to visit my website at letsdovideo.com. We have a free newsletter. Once or twice a month, we just put out an email with all our latest articles. Does anyone have any questions? Any requests? Thanks so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you, David. I love that keynote.